Tony, it's Darren.
Oh, Darren.
What's happening, mate? Do you know?
No, we don't.
Right, I've had a report that there was an explosion at Liverpool Street and Edgware Road.
Well, we've heard sort of differing reports.
They said that there is something has exploded.
Something's going on across London.
Around 50 people have been seriously injured and more than 300 others treated in hospital for minor injuries. Tonight, London is a city in shock.
On the morning of July 7th, 2005, London was the target of a coordinated terrorist attack. Four suicide bombers targeted the city's transport system during rush hour.
4 bomb blasts in a 60-minute period have killed at least 33 people. 3 tube stations were targeted, as well as a double-decker bus.
David was really excited because he had to come to London and stay overnight. Hadn't been to London before, and it would be his first time. He must have left home at about 4:30 or 5 o'clock to catch the train that he did. And then he got on the tube, went to Edgware Road.
Edgware Road. 3 trains were involved in a blast. An explosion hit a train between King's Cross and Russell Square.
An incident between Liverpool Street and Aldgate Tube. Either an explosion or a collision between trains.
Walked into situations we had multiple patients. I told these people that I'm going to take care of them.
It was packed with commuters. Some perhaps had jumped on after they'd been evacuated from the tube.
Hundreds of people have been injured, 45 seriously hurt.
There could be a number of further devices discovered.
Britain apparently became the target of Al-Qaeda. The police had always warned it was a matter of when, not if.
We condemn utterly these barbaric attacks. We send our profound condolences to the victims and their families.
My phone went. Somebody said, I'm a police officer, Greater Manchester Police. Can we come and see you? And of course I said, then you're coming to give us bad news, aren't you?
Good morning from central London. It's just after 8 a.m. and the capital's waking up to what looks like another calm, clear day.
M25 looking a bit better now clockwise for the QE2 bridge after the broken down oil tanker that's been shifted.
Changing the law, planning the stadiums. London's 2012 Olympics are already taking shape. Regenerating the planet is the task for the G8 leaders in Scotland.
Typical day for me is I always do 12-hour shifts, be they day or night shifts. You arrive on station, if the vehicle is there, check it over, if not, wait for it to come back, and then check it over top to bottom, make sure you've got all your equipment, all your drugs, then make yourself available on the computer system and wait to be dispatched to calls. The calls come down directly to the car, you respond to calls, finish that job, go available, get the next call. So you go from job to job to job all day long. So I joined in 1999. Trained as an EMT, which was an emergency medical technician, which is a role you started as. Then went through training as a paramedic in 2004. And since then I've worked primarily as a single responder on a fast response car, always in the East End of London mainly. I don't recall much of the day before I was sent on this incident. I started at 7 a.m, took the vehicle over. I'm not sure if I'd had a job before then, been to any patients. So I was parked outside the Royal London Hospital when I was dispatched, I can't tell you the time, roughly 8:50, 8:45. I was dispatched to a MAL in an office building near Liverpool Street train station with chest pain. And I was en route to that call when I came across this incident. So I had no idea what I was going to come across. En route to that, when you're driving through traffic on lights and sirens, the key is you look a long way ahead. And whilst I was going around some corners, I became aware that there's far more people out and about, even though it was rush hour, more than expected. I then saw a fire engine, so I assumed possibly a fire alarm had been detected or there was a fire in a building, so the building had been evacuated. And it's only when I went around the next corner, looked across at the train station where this happened, a police officer rang across the road, waving at me to slow down. I pulled over. He came over and said I wasn't there for the incident on the train. So I'd had no pre-warning that I was going to any kind of train incident. I was going to a male with chest pain originally.
Breaking news we're getting from the PA Newswire that there's been reports of an explosion outside Liverpool Street Station.
There are reports of a crash. Another suggests power surges were to blame.
Now, unfortunately for public transport, we've got some major incidents occurring. I've just had a word with TfL. They're asking that please people avoid the whole tube network at the moment.
If you're not being treated by any paramedic, please move your way towards the McDonald's area.
Tried to notify our control centre on the radio, but the radio system at that point became incredibly busy. With hindsight, we now know why. There was lots of other incidents that had been declared at the same time, so the radio was very busy, so I couldn't get through to the radio system. Grabbed the equipment I thought would be necessary for that kind of incident, walked across the road. As I walked across the road, station doors had been pulled slightly, the shuttering, so people couldn't get in, but plenty of people were still coming out. There was people sitting on the pavement each side with, covered in soot and some injuries. There was a paramedic on scene to my right-hand side. I remember him kneeling, talking to some people. Then a motorcycle paramedic from the ambulance service appeared suddenly beside my side. And we went towards the gate and followed the police officer through the station. There's still people coming out, some with what you class as walking wounded, so some head injuries and upper body injuries, but those able to walk. We walked down into the station through the big set of steps, and then a firefighter came up, ran up steps to us, and said, we believe there's no more explosives on board. So obviously that's the first time we'd heard that there's any kind of explosion involved.
Janet and I had been married 5 years before we had children. It was a matter of saving up so we could afford it. So we had David, and then exactly 2 years later, we had Jill. Yeah, at 22, I remember thinking we were so pleased that he seems to have got through all the terrible teens. He hadn't got in trouble in any way, shape or form. He hadn't got involved with drugs. He didn't smoke. He just drank a little bit socially. He had a very wide circle of friends. He was one of those guys that everybody just seemed to like. You know, he didn't rub up anybody the wrong way. He didn't seem to have any enemies. And he was very sociable, and he had a good bunch of friends that we liked and were happy that he was with them. Well, Tuesday the 5th of July, our daughter was still at university, and she was due to spend a year in America. So we'd taken her to the airport, we'd all waved goodbye to her. And all our holidays together and to visit her were planned. On Wednesday, Wednesday was always a special day for us. We always met together and had dinner together whenever we could. David came home and he was really excited because he had to come to London and stay overnight to do with work. He'd just started work a few weeks earlier. Hadn't been to London before, and it would be his first time on his own. He'd been as a youngster when we brought him. He'd come down on his own, and we'd have to get the tube. So we printed a map of the tube off the internet, and we planned his route for him.
West London, Edgware Road. Passengers here would not have known about Liverpool Street or King's Cross this morning, or would be hearing it was some kind of technical problem. So they would go on down into the underground.
I remember saying, I passed their comments to them and he said, oh, my son David's gone down to London today, it's his first trip. And they said to me, are you worried? And I said, no, I mean, this is, no, it's no, it's not at all worried, but actually I was absolutely scared.
At 9:17, there was an explosion on a train coming into Edgware Road underground station, which blew a hole through a wall onto another train in an adjoining platform. In fact, it's believed that 3 trains were involved in that particular incident.
I was at work. I'd been at work since 8:30, and Janet was at work. So I was in a meeting, phones were off, and I remember 20 to 1, I switched my phone on, and the very first message was somebody who introduced themselves as from David's work and said he hadn't turned up for the meeting and she'd phoned the police. I remember thinking, why would anybody phone the police just because somebody didn't turn up for a meeting? And then somebody said, switch the computers on, have a look at what's happening. There's some tellies in the office. And we saw it, and I went, oh, a real horrible moment.
Go to Aldgate, there's a major incident there.
And emergency response teams rushed to help the victims.
Aldgate station, a quarter of a mile east of Liverpool Street, and this is clearly no security alert, no false alarm.
We walked down through the station, went to the edge of the platform, and there's a ramp that takes you down onto the train surface itself. There's quite a few people walking around, there's firefighters walking around, so we knew that it'd been made safe. We could look down into the tunnel. There was some lights in the tunnel, but not many, and they're quite dirty, they're covered in soot. And you can see the front of a train about 100 metres away. So we was walking down to the train, came to the second carriage where it was obviously an incident happened at the far end of that carriage, but we couldn't get in at that point. So it's unusual to try to get in the train from the train surface, and they're actually quite high. It's actually kind of like shoulder height, you've got to get into the floor. So the firefighters used some of their little ladders, and myself and the other paramedic climbed into the train. So we're now at the carriage, looking down towards where the explosion had taken place. And we quickly ascertained it was kind of like two scenes. One scene at this end, one scene at the other end. So quick chat with that other paramedic, he decided he was going to stay at this end of the train. I jumped back down onto the track, walked down past the end of the carriage. Another firefighter put a ladder up, smashed the window for me. I went into the next carriage, turned right, and our lane came down towards where the incident happened. I immediately had 4 patients I was going to be trying to help. Realised I had to make a very quick assessment, deal with as many patients as I could very quickly. There was deceased patients on the floor ahead of me. The injuries were so severe that nothing could be done for, and a very quick assessment proved that to me. And there was 3 patients immediately that I knew I could do something for. 2 to my right-hand side, 1 on the floor to my left-hand side. All of them with very severe traumatic injuries. Concentration came to mind immediately. I realised I need to step up now and really need to remain calm. I mean, I like to use the phrase, look, calm is contagious. Now, if you stay calm, other people on scene may calm. It can actually help patients remain. If they see, like, you're calm, you're going to take care of me, hopefully that should be better for them. The 2 patients to my right-hand side had already been assisted by a police officer on board the train, and as she'd walked through the train, she had applied tourniquets to their injuries. She used belts, which dramatically improved their chances of survival, which I think probably saved their lives. So then it was just a case of trying to get these patients out as soon as possible, stabilise them, get them out. There was another team of firefighters that appeared outside the train. That it was their responsibility to take people out and up to the surface to the waiting ambulance service and doctors up there. So we, inside the carriage, we the people, we moved them onto the temporary stretchers and helped get them out of the train quickly. There was some delay sometimes because obviously it was awkward trying to get past the debris. And then at one point, everyone had left scene for safety because a firefighter appeared outside blowing his whistle. The whistle really cuts through all noise, so it really grabs your attention. So we knew something was up. He appeared outside the train, blowing his whistle, saying everyone out. And everyone out, we believe there's a secondary device. So which obviously grabs your attention. So I had a quick thought. I looked at these 2 patients on my right who were conscious. So I just told them I'm going to take care of them. So I'm like, oh, well, I can't leave. I'll stay here with them. And they kind of smiled at that. And then the two firefighters, the older one was like, well, if he's staying, I've got to stay. And the younger one was, he's staying, I've got to stay. So the 3 of us stayed. and everyone else was evacuated. From all the other firefighters and police down in the station, they was all evacuated. So we was on our own for about a few minutes. It seemed longer as time stops, as it were, time slows. It seems longer, and then everyone came down back, and then we extricated and got the patients out one at a time and got them taken up to the surface.
Well, what appears to be a coordinated strike against the transport network during this morning's rush hour has left the capital crippled.
London's worst attack since the Second World War, a shocking toll of dead and injured, and the entire capital city's transport system, tubes, buses, roads, railways, paralysed as at no time in history.
I phoned Janet, and she'd heard the news as well, so we went home. We put the telly on, and it was, of course, across all the news.
A reminder of that Scotland Yard casualty hotline number for anyone concerned that friends or relatives may have been affected. It is 0870 1566 344. That is 0870 1566 344.
There was an emergency telephone number that was flashing on, so we phoned that number, and they just simply said, "Oh, thank you for phoning us," and name, age, and that was it. They just received calls. They didn't phone anybody back with any information. So we phoned that, it must have been 1,000 times. So this was Thursday, about 3:30. I remember it so well. We didn't go to bed at all that night. We were so busy on the phone.
This the scene near one of the explosions this morning at Russell Square. Remember, there have been 6 explosions in all, we think, according to the Metropolitan Police, those on the underground and one above ground on a bus. This is the scene of that. These pictures are just reaching us, and you can get a picture of the chaos that there has been in London, the confusion.
Friday was exactly the same. It was so busy on the television. And in fact, we did contemplate coming to London to go to the hospitals, because the news was at that time there were a number of unidentified people in comas. And obviously I tried to phone David, but you may recall the phones had been switched off, so we couldn't even leave a message for him. So it was very tense. We decided not to come to London, we'd stay at home.
The day terrorists brought carnage to London, a series of explosions ripped through the city at rush hour.
4 bomb blasts in a 60-minute period have killed at least 33 people. 3 tube stations were targeted, as well as a double-decker bus.
The scale and efficiency of the emergency response may itself have saved many lives, though tonight some 95 people are reported still in a critical or serious condition.
Friday came, we didn't go to bed again. Saturday was pretty grim, and about late morning, 12 o'clock-ish, there was a knock at the front door. And there was a police officer in plain clothes, a young girl. She held up a warrant card and said, "Can I come in?" So we came in, and of course we were, tell us something, tell us something. And she said, "I have nothing to tell you. I've just been sent to collect DNA samples from you and Janet." So she took the mouth swabs, took them to the door, and there was a police motorcyclist there, and he took the swabs off. She came in, and she was massively embarrassed because she didn't know anything. She was a Manchester police officer, and she'd just been instructed. Anyway, so she left. Obviously, it was difficult for her.
Underground, on London's tube system, as we speak, a huge rescue operation is underway. We understand, though it's not confirmed, there are people still trapped underground.
It was packed with commuters. Some perhaps had jumped on after they'd been evacuated from the tube. Eyewitnesses spoke of seeing dismembered bodies still in their seats, other bodies thrown into the street. In the confusion, survivors were reunited. Medical staff from the nearby Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital ran to do what they could.
Sunday, I remember going and buying every single newspaper, and we read absolutely everything. And we were phoning this phone number all the time, watching the news all the time. And of course, there were journalists on the ground in London with helicopters flying all over. And you can see the stress the journalists and the reporters are under to say something. And if you're desperately watching that, it really creates, oh, there's 9 people in hospital who have not been identified. Might be David. Every single phone call I made.
There's so little information, and because a lot of people at the time when they were leaving home before 9 o'clock were hearing that this was some kind of electrical fault, there's very little awareness of exactly what's going on, the level of coordination, the number of casualties and fatalities. It is complete information vacuum.
Monday came, and late morning, I had a phone call from a gentleman who said he was a police officer at Greater Manchester Police, and the DNA samples were great, but they also needed David's dental records. Could I pop down to the dentist and get a copy of his records? So I did. I went down to see our dentist, and Robert was really good. And I mean, I must have smelt terrible, because we hadn't been to bed for 3 days and hadn't eaten anything. I must have had tea breath. It must have been horrendous for him. And he was great, Robert. He gave me the dental records. And when I got home, there was a police officer waiting for them. And again, he didn't know anything, and he left.
Less than half an hour later, 3 trains were involved in a blast at Edgware Road Tube. It was reported that passengers on one train tried to smash the windows with umbrellas in a desperate attempt to escape. 5 more people have been confirmed dead.
Tuesday came, at that point, we were absolutely exhausted. I mean, we were in just such a bad place that I don't remember the Tuesday at all. And Wednesday, I just don't know how Wednesday came by.
Tens of thousands tramping home tonight on foot across the capital. The underground system shut down. Liverpool Street, King's Cross and Edgware tube stations are crime scenes and will be shut for the foreseeable future. There are no buses, there are no taxis. London Bridge empty of cars as people make their way home as best they can.
Well, at the time we went into the station, as I said, we didn't know there was a bombing. The amount of devastation caused inside a train by an explosion is horrific, causing devastation to so many people.
There was one body under some of the metal sheeting that wasn't moving. He's had his trousers blown off. There's a couple of others who were had their clothes stripped from them as well, but just about moving on the track. And then in the carriage, there's people covered in blood and people trying to hold their heads and give them some help. We carried on walking up to Aldgate.
An almighty bang. Things went dark there for a second, and so much smoke, and people panicking. And then people started to calm down. People wanted to get to the back of the train away from the danger area, but there was nowhere for them to go. And then they took us off the train and made us walk all the way back past it all. Dead bodies on the tracks, train blown open.
You go to a situation like that, you think it's going to be like the TV and film, it's all noise and chaos, and it's not. People with bad injuries or bad illnesses don't scream and shout. They stay quiet, they sweat, they vibrate, they just ask for help. So it wasn't noisy. Smell-wise, as to this day, I can still smell it, which was like the warm dust of the train. And in the silence, all I remember hearing is phones pinging, because obviously after about half an hour, it was in the media already, and all I could hear in the background was mobile phones, because people had just dropped their phones and gone. So I could just hear phones pinging and ringing and stuff like that, so that's quite eerie. I didn't have time to think about my emotion. I was just concentrating too much on what I had to get done and get it done quickly. Do the best you can for the most people, get it done as fast as possible, and then get out of that situation.
It was a large explosion, a flash of
flame down the side of the train. Lots of very dense smoke very quickly. Lots of grit and rubbish.
We just pulled out of Edgware Road, and next thing I know, there's a large flash of light. Felt a burning sensation on my hands, put my hands up to my face. Was on the floor by that point. Yeah, I can't recall anything prior to that, any noise, any bang. And as soon as I realised, there'd been an accident, got up, had a look around, saw where the exits were. The train was a complete standstill, the lights are out, a lot of smoke in the carriage, not a lot of people moving.
Now, before I came out of the tunnel, I'd climbed out of the train. As I say, the train was now completely empty of patients that could be helped. So I climbed out of the carriage down the little ladder, and then got all my equipment together and realised I'd left my stethoscope on the train. Stethoscope, a good stethoscope's expensive, and my wife had bought it for me. It was a gift for when I qualified. So I then had to climb back into the train on my own, walk through, dig around among the debris. I found my stethoscope, very pleased with that. When I went back into the train, there was no one else in the tunnel. Just myself and the people that had died during the event.
What was that like? How did that make you feel?
Sad that I couldn't do more for them. Grateful that we'd been able to get the people out, that we could say we'd got them out quickly. And I think in good haste they'd be okay. They'd survive the day, hopefully. Horrified at what I could still see. I was glad to leave it when I got back out. I was glad to leave it. Coming back out of the station was overwhelming, going from comparative silence, which, as I said, just the phones going, into the noise and chaos. When I came outside the station, ambulances, people, news teams, helicopters, so go from silence to noise. Given a bottle of water, a colleague hugged me. So when I realised that I was actually covered top to toe in debris and dust and all kinds of nastiness. She said that I'd been down there for about an hour and a half, I think, and to me it felt about 30 minutes at the most. So it's amazing how much time compressed. I remember that clearly.
There were people coming out with, smoke around their mouth and nose, minor cuts, lacerations. I would imagine the people who were injured much more were still down there being treated. They were transported directly to the hospital.
What was the scene that greeted you?
It was horrendous. I mean, everyone was just running around panicking. I was shaking like a leaf. I was in total shock. Nobody really knew that it was a bomb, but we just, we all assumed it was. I didn't see any injuries, no, but obviously there were people dealing with it. I mean, the paramedics and the police were there within seconds. I mean, it was incredible how quickly they got there.
A doctor from the aircraft service appeared beside me, told me about all the other incidents that happened, told me they were going to King's Cross. So I then jumped in the car, followed them all the way across to King's Cross, which was a little bit surreal because all the roads were empty, almost like it was during lockdown with COVID. But the difference was that all the office workers had come out and applauded us as we went past. So that was very odd. Arrived at King's Cross, and at King's Cross, all I did was deal with some patients. They were on stretchers. As I was brought up to the surface, just quickly check them over. Straight after this event, they had a massive debrief for all the ambulance service people involved at a football stadium, where they fed us all. They went through a quick debrief of what happened that day. My sister-in-law works in the National Gallery, so I popped into the National Gallery because she was working the front desk. Make sure she'd be able to get home okay. Which was weird because I parked right on Trafalgar Square, and as I walked through the crowd, obviously bearing in mind, but it was all on the screens everywhere, and I was covered in stuff. It was like passing the Red Sea that everyone's passed out my way as I walked through the foyer of the museum. Had a quick chat with her. Obviously, she's a bit shocked because she's seen me, then looking at the TV and thinking, I was like, yeah, that was, I was there.
I remember with absolute clarity, 6:20, my phone went and somebody said, I'm a police officer, Greater Manchester Police, we're the family liaison officer team. Can we come and see you? Where are you at home? Can we come and see you? And of course I said, then you're coming to give us bad news, aren't you? And they said, yes, unfortunately we are. So on the phone they confirmed that David had been killed a week without any contact, without any information from anybody in authority. So the police came round. Excuse me. And they were great. Jack and Laura were very, very special people. They were absolutely wonderful. And we did go to bed that night. I remember Friday morning again, because at about 8:30, there was noise outside the house. So I looked out the bedroom window, and parked on our drive were TV vans with satellite dishes and cameras on tripods and men with microphones and flash guns and all sorts of things. It turns out that the evening before, they'd released the names of the people who died and said which town they were from. And of course, the media just go straight to the electoral register and get your home address. So they turned up en masse. So I phoned the family liaison officer. He was great. They came round immediately, read a prepared statement which they'd made on our behalf, and the press went away, and they were really good. Then the family liaison officers came to see us every day. They were really good. And they said, right, it's time to go down to the mortuary. So they had a hire car, wasn't a police car, it was a plane car. So Janet and I sat in the back of a plane car with 2 police officers and drove down to London for 4.5 hours. I remember going into the mortuary. It was a marquee that had been set up in government grounds. It was just a huge tent. There were lots of people in attendance there, help, support. They were really good and helpful. And they spent quite a long time trying to persuade us not to look at David. He'd been stood next to the bomber. As a parent, you have to look. So the sheet was pulled back and we sat with David for a long time. And then we went into a room and they gave me a cardboard box, this big, about the size of a shoebox. And it had David's belongings. So his watch, which I'd bought him as a birthday present just before, his wallet, and some bits and pieces. And then sat in the back of the same police car again for 4.5 hours and drove home. And then, of course, by this time we'd told all our friends. So they were all waiting for us when we got home, and wow, how supportive and how great they've been. So that was the first week or so, first 10 days. And then 2 weeks later, we had David's funeral. And again, the world's press turned up and it was heaving, and the police sorted it all out. The press were very respectful. They were really, really good, I have to say. What I didn't say, of course, was after David, the police officers had come to us and confirmed that David had been killed. I had to phone Jill in America and tell her. God, that was a hard phone call to make. So we then had to make arrangements for Jill to come home as well, of course. So Jill came home and we had a few days with her before David's funeral. And yeah, in fact, there's a funny story about his funeral, which I always remember, and it's perhaps inappropriate, but we arrived at the church, and we live in a semi-rural position, so it's a rural church. And as we got out of the hearse, walking from the church towards us, I thought, there's a bride walking towards us. There was a figure all in white. And I thought, God, we've got here just as there's a wedding. How embarrassing is that? And as this figure in white approached, it was actually the bishop. He'd come to conduct the service. And I was starting to panic, thinking that we just spoilt some prize perfect day. But it was the bishop who'd come to conduct the service. So then again, he was really very supportive and very good. And then we went for the wake to the pub that David and I always went to for a beer. And we had a good time. And we had his favourite meal, which was chili. So we had chili. And that was it. Yeah, that was the first couple of weeks.
The first morning rush hour after terrorism, and the tube definitely wasn't as packed as normal. Some were doubtless anxious about travelling. Some may not have been aware that most of the network was running. This was the central line at Liverpool Street, just a few tunnels away from the lethal explosion on the Circle Line almost exactly 24 hours earlier, which killed 7 people.
The following day was a rotated rest day for me, so I got to stay at home for a day, kept myself very busy. I didn't want to think about what was going on. I saw it here and there. Obviously it was on all the mainstream TV, that's all they were talking about. So I jumped in and out of that, but I didn't sit down and concentrate on that. I just kept myself busy. And then the day after that, I went back, and I think I went back onto a night shift, I believe. Tried my best to carry on as normal. Obviously, lots of chat on station about who had been there, what they'd seen, what they'd done, what they'd heard. But just try to continue to move on to my next shift. So I can't tell what my next patient was after that event. But yeah, I just carried on.
I'll just ask you one question. Your feelings on taking the tube this morning?
Very nervy, but we have to, don't we? We have to get on and prove that they can't win, full stop.
I found myself looking around all the time like this, thinking, you know, is there a package, is there a parcel, or is something going to happen? So it's not very nice. But, you know, I've got no choice, so what can I do?
For the ambulance service and all the emergency services, it was a massive learning event. Whole new training packages, whole new criteria, whole new protocols came out of that service. We worked much better, we work much closer together. There's whole new teams now that are sent to incidents like this with specialist training, specialist equipment. So we're better able to deal with incidents like this. Quiet moments after emergency, we're often, speaking for myself, we're often very self-critical, because I always think I could have done that better, I should have done that faster. Did I make a mistake? Could I have alleviated their pain quicker? Could I have got them out faster? So in this job, you become very self-critical. And that people need to be aware that we might be struggling at that point, and just because we're being quiet doesn't mean we're okay. Very much so. Things that come back to me, how people will work together in dangerous situations, and how everyone tries to do their best, I think, very clear. Because of the things we face, we take our job quite lightheartedly, and then things happen and we step up, and you get the job done. I think that's how we deal with it psychologically. You just, when things happen, now it's time to step up, and everyone stepped up.
Edgware Road Station was reopened this morning, one sign that London and Londoners are refusing to give in. 24 hours earlier, it was a scene of panic and chaos after a huge explosion on the Circle Line.
How did your life and your family's life change in the aftermath of losing David?
Wow, well, Janet finished work immediately. I worked on for a year or two more. But we are very much an ordinary working class family. And all our friends had children of the same age. And, you know, we've got some really special friends. And all of a sudden, we weren't ordinary. And I remember Jill saying to me one day, she was home from America at this point, and she said, all our friends have 2 children or 3 children. So you said, I'm an only child now. That was heartbreaking. So the world carried on as per normal, but we're not normal. So our world is one where we behave and we live a normal life, but we're not normal anymore. In the first couple of years, even going shopping was difficult because people would stop us in the supermarket and say, oh, you're the couple that live up there, aren't you, whose son was killed? It was awful. So even shopping became difficult. Yeah, and you know when you meet people and you say hello and you're introduced to somebody, when they turn around and walk away, you can hear them say, that's the man whose son was killed in the 7/7 bombings. You know, and that's really hard, but you learn to live with it. I remember one of the pieces of advice we were given was, oh, the first Christmas is always difficult, the first birthday is always difficult, the first anniversary is difficult. I know now that's somebody that's never experienced anything, because every Christmas is difficult. Because there's an empty place at the table where David should be having dinner. We don't send birthday cards to David. Janet doesn't get a Mother's Day card from David. I don't get a Father's Day card from David. And every morning, when I walk out of my bedroom, I open my bedroom door and I walk past David's empty bedroom. That's not normal, and other people don't have to do that. So our life, that's 7,000 times I've walked past an empty bedroom in the morning, and 7,000 times I've walked past an empty bedroom door in the evening. And our daughter's married. She and Bobby are just the most wonderful things. We've got 2 wonderful granddaughters who don't have an uncle. They know about Uncle David, of course, because we take him to the grave and they bring flowers with us. But they don't have the uncle that they should have. So life changes in just about every aspect. And you think, why am I working so hard? We don't go on holiday with our son. In fact, we haven't been on holiday since anywhere that we went on holiday with David. We can't bring ourselves to go back to the same place. So your life changes, absolutely. In every aspect of your life changes. When we told my mum, sadly she had a heart attack. She was very unwell for a while and she died a few years later. And Janet's father had passed away earlier. And Janet's mum again was very badly shaken. Yeah. It was and is hard. You know, we should be with him. He should be here.
An incredible response of stoicism and discipline and order that also contributed to minimising casualties. This year, for the first time in human history, a majority of people live in cities. London continues to grow. And I say to those who planned this dreadful attack, whether they're still here in hiding or somewhere abroad, watch next week as we bury our dead and mourn them. But see also, in those same days, new people coming to this city to make it their home, to call themselves Londoners, and doing it because of that freedom to be themselves.
Do you process it fully, things like that? No, I don't think you do. But I could equally, not just this job, I could talk to you about 10, 15 jobs that I could go through them forensically, step by step by step. So it's not just this event. I've been to other major incidents since then. But you don't forget it. I still work in that area of London. I still drive past that train station. I've done jobs on the platform in that train station. Every time I go down there, it brings memories back. Every time I talk about it, memories come back. If you had a monitor on me now, my pulse is pretty quick now. But that'd be the same for many other jobs. So I don't think you process it, you don't forget it, it gets easier each day, but it's always there. It will never go away. Have I moved on? No. I'll say to my wife and friends, oh yeah, I've moved on since then. But you don't move on from events like that. Remember it very clearly in tiniest of details, tiniest smells, tiniest sounds. It's true of other events I've been to. It leaves I'd say it leaves a scar on your mind that you don't get past. But I'm glad I was there, I'm glad it was me that dealt with it, not some of my other colleagues, the ones that weren't there, so that I could deal with it. And I think that's even more obvious now as I'm a father. I wasn't a father then, I'm a father now, and I'd be even more inclined to be thinking that nowadays. I think, like, no, I'll do this, and you stay outside and we'll go inside and do this. So you don't want people to have to face what we face in the job. This job, being a paramedic or working in the emergency services, I think these jobs make you incredibly grateful for the life we lead. I think we all take it for granted. I realise how lucky I am. And I'm glad that I got through it, knowing that if I ever go to anything like that again, I'll be even more prepared for it, I'll be even more calm. So it's helped me be sure of my career path. I know I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm in the place I'm supposed to be.
We have a memorial outside in the common garden that we all share outside the house. And of course we go to David's grave and flowers. There's an event every year at the memorial in Hyde Park, which we get involved with. And we talk about him, even though, you know, it might seem strange, but we laugh and joke all the time. And it seems a strange thing to say, but I talk to him every day. I don't get the cheeky answers that I used to get, but I talk to him every day. And we talk about him and we laugh about him, and we always talk about, oh, do you remember when this happened and when that happened, and so on. And he wasn't perfect by any means, but his imperfections were brilliant. And we talk about him all the time. And that's how we keep our memory alive. And we always will. It's only when something's taken away from you realise how precious it was. And I look back now and I think I had a fantastic relationship with my son. You know, and it was special. Sorry. Which is why it's so hard, and why I've been doing what I've been doing to try and stop other people committing the crime so that other families don't have to in any way suffer. It's horrible. It's beyond horrible.
I've been to some other major incidents since then, sometimes with many patients. It's good to see how things improve day by day. Every day's a school day. And all the services work better now. We work closer together with generally a better outcome. I think it helped improve me as a paramedic. I think it improved me as a person. But it doesn't take away the fact that what people went through was horrific.
I think the one thing that we talked about a little bit ago was what support we've had. And I think that's really important, that you're not embarrassed to cry in front of your friends. You're not embarrassed to share your horrible thoughts with your friends, because it helps and they'll support you and look after you. And that's certainly the case that we found and I found. That is so important. Don't bottle it in. Speak to your friends. You don't necessarily need to see professional counsellors, but speak to your friends, your family, and just be honest and open, and don't be embarrassed by expressing how sad you are.
Why I hate the term hero I was doing my job. It's that simple. It's what I'm paid to do. You don't get to choose the job you're going to do. You don't get to choose, oh, this is a bit too messy or this is a bit too upsetting, or no. You're there to do your job. So just do the job to the best of your ability and then be prepared to go to the next one.
This is the 20th anniversary now, so there's a whole generation of people out there that don't know anything about this. They don't realise this was the biggest attack on British soil since the war, when 52 people were murdered by homegrown terrorists. That day spawned terrorism and suicide bombers across the world. Up till then, there hadn't been any in Europe. And it was after 7/7, and to this day, we still have suicide bombers. As a society and as a group of people, we need to remember what happened that day. And it's not government's job to make communities cohesive. It's our job to make our communities cohesive. We can't expect government to stop radicalisation. It's up to us to work in our communities with our friends to create an environment in which people don't get radicalised. It's our responsibility to tackle terrorism. It's not somebody else's. And the way we tackle terrorism is by being nice people to each and everybody. And even if you don't agree with their thoughts and their beliefs, you don't have to kill them. And I hope that these films and this anniversary, that message is out there.